Hello. And now, if you're watching this, um, I'm going to talk about an experience that I've been going through for the last 33 months. Um, Now, as you can tell, I'm male, I'm a man, 49 years old. Um, I reside in England. Um, I'm English, lived here all my life. Um, I was born in 1974. Um, I come from a family with three half siblings, one younger brother and two younger sisters. With the brother being the youngest, 12 years my junior, um, and two sisters, one 3 years my junior, and another sister 8 years my junior. Um, so what I'm going to do in this video is tell you about my upbringing. Now, why am I going to tell you about my upbringing? It's because in 2017 and then in 2020, I was accused of some horrendous, absolutely mind-blowingly horrendous historical actions, which I'll be honest with you, creating this video, and if I go on to create any other videos to kind of flesh out what's happening to me, um, I'm not sure whether I'm gonna break down during these videos, whether I can continue with them or not. But in 2017 and 2020, I was accused by a family member, or that went on to be two family members, like two females, half siblings, of historical sexual abuse, which, as a loving brother, um, devastated me because they're not the truth. Now, why am I creating these videos? Well, one is kind of an outlet for me because I don't have really anyone to talk to, um, and two, where that not being able to have anyone to talk to comes in. The accusations caused me to have, let's say, mental health issues, and I wasn't able to find medical help for that, which I'll hopefully, if I can manage to create the videos, I'll tell you all about. And I'm creating these videos for just anyone. It doesn't have to be a man. I mean, people can be accused of things that aren't true. Let's get that straight. I've been accused of things that aren't true, and there certainly are people out there. You see that in the news, in the press regularly, especially here in the UK. So anyway, so I was born in 1974 in a town called Crewe, which is in the northwest of England. Um, my mother was a single mother. Um, Now, before I was 3 years old, she met a man. I won't mention names um, in this. She met a man, married him. Um, for whatever reason, that man did not get on with my grandmother. Uh, I think it's maternal, so my mother's grandmother, and I was used as a kind of a go-between, in between. So if I stayed at my grandmother's, I was told to say things to my stepfather, and my stepfather would tell me to say things to my grandmother, like, nasty stuff, like you're not my dad, or you're a effing bitch, or that kind of stuff. And I don't know how long that went on for, but it irreparably destroyed my relationship with my stepfather. I mean, I didn't know what I was doing at 3, 4, 5 years old, you know, um, but that began a spiral of physical and emotional abuse on that. My stepfather physically and emotionally abused me from the age of probably 3 or 4, all the way up physically until I was probably big enough to defend myself. So you're talking probably 14, 15. And then it was just emotional abuse. And when I say abuse, I mean things like stripping you of your clothes, um, throwing you outside, making you stand against the wall and throwing buckets of cold water over you. I mean, making you stand in the cold, start, in the winter, um, freezing cold as a 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old, standing where people could see you stark naked, just to shame you. I mean, things like locking you in cupboards in the dark, handcuffing you. So if you don't know, if people of my age group and slightly older may remember, in the late 1970s, early 80s, there was a TV show called Kojak. It was American. He was a detective, an American detective with a bald head, sucked on a lolly kind of thing. He was a big show back in the day. Um, well, one Christmas, I was bought a set of like a Kojak set. It was, so it was like a plastic gun, um, a Kojak lolly. So that was his kind of, made him stand out kind of thing, and a set of handcuffs. Um, and those handcuffs were regularly used to hang me from a banister, let's say. Imagine a flight of stairs that comes down. So you go up a flight of stairs, but you've got a wooden banister that comes down alongside it, and you've got the tall, big post next to it. So that would be used to hang me from it. So I'd be on my tiptoes for a long time, almost like a stress torture type of um, technique being used on me as a child. And obviously, then I mentioned I was locked in the dark, constantly told that I was a faggot. Um, uh, if you cried more, you're going to get beat, hit and beat and tortured more. And then there's obviously the more kind of physical side of abuse. So using like pressure point techniques, like forcing, when I was, 5, 6, 7, forcing me to the ground and holding me down, keeping me in pain and telling me to breathe through it. Otherwise, you're going to get more pain. All sorts of punching me, throwing me around. Now, those listening probably think, well, what was your mother doing? Now, I grew up, obviously, I hated that. I hated it. It was constant. I lived in fear. Um, but even as a teenager, I just was so used to that happening that I thought that was normal. It wasn't until I met my partner, my wife, who I've been with for 29, nearly 30 years, that I'd recount some of these experiences. And she'd say to me, that was abuse. You were abused. And I never really came to terms with it. Um, but anyway, so that physical and the mental abuse, so the denial of food, the as well, the that whole thing where if you didn't eat your meal, then it was safe for your breakfast. Well, in my house, if it was possible, it would go on for 2 to 3 days, and it was a reason to beat me and punish me. Now, what does this all? You're probably thinking, what does this all have to do with those allegations against me? Well, when I was 7 or 8 years old, my father worked for a car manufacturer, a very well-known car manufacturer, luxury car manufacturer, and he was made. Um, he took voluntary redundance. They were mass laying off people, and he took voluntary redundance. And with that, he got a, I don't know how much, but a relatively hefty amount of money for that time. You're talking probably 81, 82, probably 1981, 1982, somewhere like that, very early 80s. He took it. We moved. I started a new primary school. My father bought what was then like the first home console that I remember, which was a wooden kind of looking Atari console, with the metal buttons that you slid out, and the square looking joysticks with the red button. Um, he bought that. I remember he bought the Star Wars Empire Strikes Back game, and a couple of others of it, and we're all excited. But he also bought a very early VHS player, a top-loading VHS player, where the tape came up and out, and you slot the tape in, and then you pushed it back down. Um, well, around that time, I used to uh, get up quite early in the morning on say a Saturday, I think it was, and I'd watch kind of like the original Batman series early hours of Saturday morning. I actually loved it. The power and all that kind of stuff. I loved it. I thought it was really exciting. Not everybody's cup of tea, but I really enjoyed it. Um, and obviously, sometimes one of my sisters would get up with me. Obviously, one of them's 3 years younger than me, and the other one is 8 years younger than me. So it was the older of the two. We'd get up, we'd have some breakfast or whatever, and we'd watch TV. Now, one of these mornings, we came down, and the top loading part of the VHS player was up, and there was a tape in it. I just remember pressing the tape thing down, and somehow I can't remember the detail in next part of it, but the video played. It was a pornographic video, and that pornographic video was of a woman, partially dressed woman, sat on a sofa with a genie lamp. And she whatever rubbed that genie lamp. A genie came out of the lamp, and they had graphic intercourse, sex everywhere. It's like, what are you watching when you're a child? And so I told my mother. I couldn't tell my father. Um, I just lived in fear around him, so I told my mother, and obviously that got back to my father. I was instantly to blame because my sister had seen it, and it was my fault she'd seen it, not the adult's fault for leaving it in a place where a child could find it. Um, and that amplified the abuse that I got. So my punishments were harder. The headbutting, the picking me up and throwing me, the punching me in the face, the using his coarse beard to give me rashes. So he'd hold me still and just rub his like sandpaper on my face and give me rashes all on my neck and on my face, and they'd burn. Um, and you're probably still wondering what my mum was doing. My mum, unfortunately, would allow this to happen, um, up to a point where she'd scream at him to leave me alone. But she's still, and I never understood why. Never understood why until I became a lot older and I realised, I became an adult, had a relationship of my own, and then realised that there was actually a lot more abuse going on in my home when I was a child than I realised. Now, remember, this video is kind of like therapy for myself. It's like me talking to me. I haven't been able to get any help. I'll touch upon that in another video, otherwise this video will be hours long. Um, but if you've been through physical and mental abuse, you're not alone. You're not alone. And if you want to share your experiences, or however that works, in the comments or whatever you want to do, I, I, I just want to let you know you're not alone. And if you've been accused of something that you're innocent of, you're not alone. You're not alone. And I'm kind of losing track now because it's it's an extremely kind of difficult and an emotional set of things to compute. It's just, but where was I? Where was I? So anyway, that childhood abuse. So that childhood abuse extended to wash time. So imagine you're sent up to have a wash before bed. This was the routine of my childhood. So I'm documenting here the kind of abuse we received as a child. And I wasn't alone, but I just got more of it. It was constant for me, where it was situational from my siblings. So you're sent up to have a wash. You wash your face, you brush your teeth. We had to wash behind our ears, our neck, our arms, our hands, between our fingers, our wrists, everywhere. Now, the next part was you would go down for inspection. So you were always wait in the hallway and you were called into the living room, and my stepfather would be sat on the sofa, and the first thing he'd do is he'd rub behind your ears. And if he got any sense that there was dirt on his finger, you were violently had your pajamas removed, your pajama bottoms removed, screamed, shaked, shouted at, and beat with either a shoe, whatever he could get his hands on. Half the time it was a belt with a buckle. Most of the time, belt screamed at, I don't know how many times, and then sent back up to repeat the process. And whilst my sister also got the beatings that I did, the beatings for me, she may have got 2 or 3 beatings a night based on that. Mine could go on and on and on for a good hour until I suppose his enjoyment in the situation waned. And now I'm looking back at this as an adult and trying to work out what could the hell have been going through his mind and how he could. And I'm a father. I've got 2 grown uh, boys. They're both adults. One's 28, one's 24. And I never physically chastised my children. Never did. I never felt the need. I spoke to them, did my best to educate them. And don't get me wrong, I'm not entirely against physical chastisement. I just felt that based on my childhood, there had to be a better way of going through that. And I was, yeah, well, one of these times that we were in the bathroom, scared, shaking, me and my sister, scared to go downstairs. I sat down against the wall on some towels that were on the floor, and then I felt something move beneath the towel. Obviously got up, had a look, see what it was, and it was it was a pornographic. There was a lot of there was along the wall. There was pornographic magazines, and one of them was open, and one of them is depicting a woman with her fingers inside herself, opening herself up. So it's like a full spread type thing. And they were just left in the bathroom. We were being sent up to that bathroom to have a wash. Yet there was pornography. Again, I told my mother about the pornography as soon as I could. And again, I was to blame. Not my mother blaming me, by the way. My stepfather blaming me that pornography was mine. He actually said to me, "What have you been showing your sister?" I was probably at max 8 years old. So she is 3 years younger than me. 3 years younger. So she was 5. 5 years old and an 8-year-old seeing graphic sexual material. I mean, this is pre-internet. We're talking, this is like, what? So 1981, 1982, depends. I could have been 7 or 8. And for that, it was my fault. I was blamed for that. So, and then throughout my childhood, there was kind of little digs. Whenever there was, he'd beat me up. whenever he'd lock me outside, whenever he'd chain me up, whenever he'd lock me in a cupboard, whenever he'd, like when I was 7 or 8, there were scare tactics as well. So he'd tell me horror stories from my door, be on the other side of my door at night, telling me horror stories about creatures in the night trying to kill me. They were going to come and kill me. They were going to chew my eyes out. They were going to, scared to death. Honestly, so traumatic. And even go as far as creating kind of like banging on my window at night, making out it was this creature that was coming to kill me, scaring me to death, traumatizing me. And that carried on for years. That carried on for years. Now, I'm kind of like, my head is getting really foggy at this point, but as you can imagine, I can't be the only person to have gone through this. And maybe not all step parents are evil. Not all step parents do this. Maybe it isn't all step parents that abuse, physically and mentally abuse children. Maybe, you know, full blown, parents can do this. I'm sure they can. I'm sure they have. I'm sure they do. Um, but I, it's just absolute disgrace what's happening to me. It's, and I'll go in. I'll try and go into that in more detail in another video. I feel like I have to. Um, thank you for watching. Yeah, thank you.